save. Go present now, your entire screen. Select, share. All right, cool. We're good. Put this up. I'm getting there, Rooster. All right, what are some pros and cons of a naturalistic observation? So yesterday we had a activity, 5-minute observation. Hope many of you enjoyed it. Obviously, it was a little of a controlled environment just because we were stuck in our seats. But for the most part, we observed someone in the class and we wrote down some of the things that they were doing. Obviously, again, it was kind of controlled because many people were just looking at their iPads, maybe observing someone else. So some of the characteristics are very similar to everybody else. But we talked about a naturalistic observation and a controlled observation yesterday. We'll talk about a participant observation a little bit more in the chapter, okay? That's very similar to a controlled observation, but it kind of mixes the two together. We'll get to that a little bit later in the chapter. But what are pros and cons of naturalistic observation? I'll let you guys work on that a few minutes. There you go. For you remote learners, you might have observed a pet, a family member, someone like that. So just write down the pros and cons of a naturalistic observation. Actually, their observation might have been a little bit better depending on who heard, the lecture, right? If their parent heard it or pet obviously has no idea, they would have a better example of a naturalistic observation, right? Yeah. Right, Katie? Yeah. Okay, I'll leave that up for you. Can everybody see it okay? I miss having your first period, Katie, because whenever I'd have a misspelled or if my sentence wasn't right or my question wasn't right, you always tell me first period, so I was good for the rest of the day. No, hold on, I got this. What is it? I'm sorry. Sarah. Oh, okay, Sarah. I'll remember tomorrow, I promise. DC, Gracie, Lily, Rebecca, Megan, Alex, Aiden, and Rooster. Big guy over here. So you get your hair permed or is it naturally curly? Oh, nice. That's really cool. Where do you get that done?
It was the place right by the pool.
Evil here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. I can't. Okay, it's like it's right by the pool. It's
All right. Yeah, I kind of know where you're at. Nice. I always thought, how funny would that be if, Mr. Henninger, Mr. Shutt, me would have come in with the perm curly hair. What do you guys think, Rebecca? What do you think? You think I could pull it off?
Yeah.
Yeah? I don't think so. I think it'd show off my. the perm hair.
Oh, I mean, if you want to.
I mean, I think you have to grow it out, otherwise it's
Yeah.
gonna be like tiny little for your curls.
You're right. You're right.
It would not look.
I mean,
No.
as long as it makes you happy, go
Like,
for it, man.
You're
grow it
right,
out
you're
first
right.
a little bit.
In the summer, I used to have I grew my hair out. I had a mullet, real nice mullet. I didn't
Nice.
shave it like one, but it was just long, And then when I wore my hat, it curled up on the sides. I liked it long, but I should probably make myself a little more presentable in class, I think. So it was long in the summer, so I maybe could have did the perm.
And then my cousin's little
No, it
brother,
won't look good. It'd show off my ugly ears.
he wanted to-
I don't like my
he wanted to
ears.
shave it. And then
Cauliflowered
my
up,
cousin
you know.
had his haircut.
All right, enough about hair today. Katie, you can finish. Go ahead.
My cousin's little brother just got a haircut, and while his mom was in the bathroom, he told the stylist that he wanted it shaved.
Oh,
So
no.
the stylist just like shaved his head. He did have a mullet because my cousin had one. He wanted to be like the older brother.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
It
it was kind of funny.
Sometimes you gotta shave your head.
Yeah, I mean,
was hot this summer. Yeah.
he decided that that's what he wanted. So
All right. So, what are some pros and cons of a naturalistic observation? Before we get to that, what is a naturalistic observation? What is that, Katie?
observing somebody without them knowing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good job. So, give an example of something of a naturalistic observation.
Just like if you decide to go to the park, you sit down on a bench and you see somebody, maybe they're like a worker, like pulling weeds.
Yeah. When I think of it, you guys ever see The Sandlot? The movie Sandlot, when all the boys are just sitting there and they're watching a lifeguard walk by. I think that's so funny. I think of naturalistic observation with that. All the kids are like, oh, and then one kid's like scrubbing his eyeglasses when she's walking by. But yeah, naturalistic observation is observing someone in their natural state without them really knowing that you're watching them. I think I forget her name. Oh, I forget her name. I have to look that up. But she kind of knew that they were looking, so she was just kind of walking down the sidewalk and jumping up on a lifeguard tower. Alex?
Close the blinds a little bit.
This one?
Yeah, I'm getting blind.
Okay, yep, no problem. Reach over here.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. I should get Rooster to do this. I'm too short. My arms are too short. I got gator arms,
I feel that.
Yeah. It helps when we're after we're eating dinner and everything. It's like, oh, I can't reach a check, so you got it. All right, so pros of a naturalistic observation. A good thing is that the person that you're observing has no idea you're observing them. So you're getting their actual characteristics, what they do, their traits, right? Whatever activities that they're performing, they're just going to do it like they normally do, and that they don't think that someone's watching. So obviously, if you know that someone's watching you and observing you, you might react in a different way, right? So your results might be skewed depending on what you're observing. What about some cons? We talked a little bit about this yesterday. TC? Yeah, how about that? Yeah, it's unethical, right? Okay, it's unethical. So if you're just observing someone, you didn't tell them about it, they might find it wrongful. They might try to call the police on you or something like that if they see observing and they see the results that were published in, let's say, an article. Okay, they might list your name, right? But for the most part, when they do that, they'll just say anonymous. They'll just say, oh, we're just observing someone in the park one day, and this is what they did. But another con to that is that, you really can't predict future behaviors then, right? So let's say someone wants to try to repeat the study, which is a part of the scientific method in psychology, is to try to repeat the study after you perform it, to try to see if all the variables work again. Okay, does that make sense? So if they try to do that again, they have no idea who they observed. So that data will forever be kind of lost, right? Unless for some reason that psychologist or a different psychologist finds that exact person and observes them again. Does that make sense? So that's some pros and cons to a naturalistic observation. All right, next thing. All right, so you guys can go on to the website here. I'd like you to open the chapter up. It's chapter 1. Okay, Exploring Psych. It's called Addicted to the Internet. It's just a small section on page 7. Okay, I'm just going to put this up so you can see it on the board. So Exploring Psych, Addicted to the Internet. For you at home, please open that up. So page 7, again, you got to go to the website. So that is right up here, classwork. Go to website. We'll pull it up. So go to psychology, obviously. Make sure you see my screen. Go to the textbook. Click up here. Might take a little bit to load. So page 7. Ooh, gotta get through the contents here, right? A little bit of scrolling. So on the online textbook, it is page 19, right? 19? Okay. So 19 on the online textbook, page 7 in the actual textbook. But who wants to read that? Addicted to the Internet. Who would like to read that? All right, Rooster, you're the man. Go ahead. Read loud and proud.
Addicted to the internet. It's 4 a.m. and Steve is engulfed in the meat glare of his computer screen. 1 minute pretending to talk the overlord mastermind in the gambling empire. The next minute, imagine people swear on alien life. Steve, a college student, is playing a multiple use dungeons game. A fictional game modeled after Dungeons and Dragons that is played by sending online messages that other players. As he continues to evolve and continually evolves on hours, Steve finds himself sleeping through classes within his home.
Oh, I'm sure many of you have these problems, right? TC? Playing video games? Oh, you don't play World of Warcraft? Wow, what a narp. I'm just kidding. So, addicted to the internet. Maybe you can relate this to someone, maybe in your family or friend. I know Matt plays video games. Yeah, he does. He loves it. Yeah, yeah. So, addicted to the internet. So, what's going on here with Steve? What's going on? He's in college, right? I think that's what it said. Yeah, he's in college. So, what's he doing every day? Katie?
Playing video games.
Playing video games. He's like engulfed in this world, right? This virtual world. It's to the point where his actual life is being played through this video game rather than going to classes. And if he is going to classes, he's falling asleep, right? He's not paying attention. So it came to the point where his life is actually being lived through virtually on this video game rather than in actual life. So as a psychologist, so let's say let's say I actually did this observation in class. So let's say Steve's sitting up front up here, imaginary Steve. Okay. He never turns lights on, obviously. He's sleeping. But what could we observe about Steve, obviously? He's sleeping, okay? So as a psychologist, our first thing to do, which is the 4 goals of psych, which we'll talk about, is description. So description is how we're going to observe these behaviors, right? What is he doing? And obviously sleeping. So predictions next. So this is where you formulate your hypothesis, okay, which will later be proved to a theory. So as you're sitting in class, what would your hypothesis be of Steve? What do you think? So obviously we know a little bit more of information already just because we read about him. But what would your hypothesis be of Steve? What do you think, Rebecca? What's that? Yeah, he should get more sleep, right? So just viewing him in class, it's like, well, what's going on with him? You know, he's obviously not sleeping at night. There's something that's keeping him awake, something that's obviously altering his personality, altering the way he reacts in class. So usually a hypothesis, which we'll get to, is an if-then statement. So if Steve does this, then he will perform better in class. So in your statement, your hypothesis would be if Steve would get more sleep at night, then he would be more attentive in class, correct? Yeah. So then we would test that, obviously. So let's just say we're his roommate. It's like, hey, man, we're unplugging the Xbox later or unplugging your computer, and we'll see if this works. So the variables there, which we'll talk about later in the chapters, is going to pertain to the hypothesis. But with Steve, what other reactions or whatever behaviors might occur if he continues this lifestyle? If he continues streaming and going on these games every single night, what behaviors might happen to Steve? Or what personality traits will we see from him? What do we think? Alex?
He may become irritable in his day-to-day life, like when he's actually like at school or at work.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it might alter his personality, right? It might affect him in a way that he might be irritable. He might be lashing out in certain scenarios and certain examples, like with class. Like, let's say he's communicating with someone. He might be triggered easily, right? Because he has lack of sleep. And what else? Go ahead, Katie.
He also might become like physically unhealthy because he's not getting enough. If he's tired, he'll probably start drinking things like energy drinks.
Okay, yeah.
Like, all day.
Yeah.
So that's not good.
Yeah, so you're taking like a biological perspective to it, right? So his eating habits, his lack of sleep, he's not getting the proper rest his body needs to perform his daily tasks. So yeah, he's going to obviously fall into a downward spiral if he continues these behaviors. Okay, good. What else?
If he continue that downward spiral, if he's tired all the time, he may not have the energy to properly take care of himself, like do his hair, properly bathe himself.
Take a shower, right? Yeah, brush his teeth, not putting on deodorant, stinking it up in class. He'll be the guy in the back of the classroom stinking up wearing WWE shirts. I'm just kidding. We always used to make, that was a joke back in the day. Oh, the stinky kid in the back of the classroom with the WWE shirts on. That was my one friend. We used to make fun of him all the time about it. We probably shouldn't have. But Kinsley, go ahead. Character Ed, right? Discovery. Go ahead, Kinsley.
He'll be stressed because like sleep kind of helps restart the body.
Yeah, good job. So we already touched about personality traits, right? So we can say a personality perspective to psychology. We could say biological, you said. So personality, stressful situations. What about socially? What about socially? Katie, go ahead.
Ties with friends, family will potentially drop off and probably will drop off because he's too consumed in the game that he's not communicating with anybody.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. I always get a little upset with my dad sometimes. He comes home from work, and he's older, obviously, so he gets a little bit tired from the job that he performs, but he sits on his phone, and he just loves it. He's looking on Twitter. He's looking at sports because fantasy football is kicking back up. So he's in his phone constantly. I'm sitting there, hey, Dad, how's your day? Dad, what are you doing? Yo, Dad, I start yelling at him, and he's just like, oh, what? I'm just kidding. It's an example. It happens every now and then. But so his social experience might alter, right? That's an example, right? So social, psychological perspective. Okay, so we're building off these different perspectives, which we'll talk about here soon. So just with this one example, Steve, there's more I'm sure we can come up with. Maybe a cognitive too. What about cognitive? So you'll read about this here soon. Cognitive is just understanding and building connections and knowledge upon what we perform in everyday tasks. So let's say practice, obviously. That's building cognitive, receptive reactions to things. What about cognitively? How would he be altered with that, with these behaviors? How could that be altered? Alex?
He may become more sluggish and slow and not as alert as he used to be.
Yeah, good job. So his reactions are going to fall, right? His reactions are going to be delayed. So driving his car, maybe he drives a scooter on the campus. Who knows? He might be wrecking and falling into things. Yeah, who knows? What else? What else can cognitive behaviors be? How could they be affected? So obviously, if he's sleeping in class, is he really understanding the concepts being delivered in class, the instruction? No, he's not. Okay. So again, there's a lot of these perspectives that we can use to maybe understand and build on with Steve, just in this one example. There's not just one form of psychology that you can use to understand his behaviors and see how this might affect him. Do you see how there's many different perspectives that we can take? Yeah. So with psychology, that's kind of what I wanted to go over with this one example, right, with Steve. There's many different perspectives. There's many different approaches to take when understanding someone's lifestyle, okay, and how we can maybe alter it and change it moving forward, which we'll get to with the scientific method. All right, but today I want to go over the 4 goals of psych. All right, the 4 goals of psych. So I'd like you to start on page 9, which is, let's find it here. And I'll discuss this here with the presentation here after, just kind of review. There it is, 4 goals of psych here. So page 10, and that is on the slide. For some reason, it's not coming up for me. What is that? What page is that on this? 22. Okay. So page 22, I like you to read the goals of psychology. So description, explanation, okay, prediction, and influence. Okay. I like you guys to read over those sections. And I think it finishes up on page 12. Okay. Page 12 there. So stop at the scientific basis of psychology. Okay. I like you to stop there. Does everybody know what we're doing? Okay. So just read those 4 goals for me. You guys need the lights on here? You good? Okay. Just want to make sure. Alex, you good, man? All right, cool. Like your Crocs, Sarah. I have a pair. I love them. We need more time? 1 more minute? All right, 1 more minute. 1 more minute. Lily, you good? Okay. All right, so let's go over this real quick. I'll pull up the PowerPoint. There it is. So we'll go over these 4 goals of psych here soon. I just want to go through what is psychology. Okay, psychology is a scientific study of behavior and mental processes. I will post the vocab here for you shortly and the PowerPoint. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so when you look up the vocab terms, they'll all be in the PowerPoint for you. I feel like that's the easiest thing for everybody. Does that work, Alex? Okay. Sound good, man. All right, so psychology, scientific study of behavior and mental processes. So throughout the next couple days, we're going to talk about historical approaches, perspectives in psychology, important key figures that help build psychology into what it is today. And even today, it's ever changing. There's more career paths that you can take than ever. Okay, for the most part, psychology is a new field of study. Okay, it's a new social science that's now being just pushed into society more than ever. Okay, and I think we can all agree to that, right? So with mental health being more of an issue than ever because we can understand the brain a little bit more, understand feelings, emotions, behaviors. We can try to build off of that and try to help people the best we can. So school districts especially trying to apply these new forms of psychology to their curriculum, to their district to help benefit students, people out the best they can. Let's just say drug and rehabilitation, same thing. Okay, sports psychology, like we talked about, business psychology, right? How we can make businesses more efficient, more effective, how we can make the help out the people that work there. Okay, how we can make it a better environment for people to work more efficiently. Okay, so like I said, there's all these different forms of psychology and approaches that we'll discuss and talk about in the next couple of days. All right, so behavior, any action an organism does that can be observed. All right, so this goes along with description and what you just read about. All right, so with abnormal psychology and let's just say with psychology and social interactions, we're always trying to find out something that makes us turn our head. Okay, it always makes us say, you know what, that person that just did that with the naturalistic observation, the person that just walked down the street there, you know, he had a funny way of walking. You know, he was throwing rocks the whole way down as he was walking, whatever it might be. Whatever it might in our mind describes like, you know what, I wouldn't do that if I was walking down the street. You know, what makes that person do that? Okay, what makes that person act the way they do? Okay, so with description especially, which we'll get to here soon, that is something that many psychologists try to understand. And what makes that person perform the way they do? Okay. So mental processes, internal subjective experiences we infer from behavior. So we try to relate it to how we would react. Okay. And these observations that we make, yeah, they might be something similar that we do and perform, but they also might be totally different. And that's kind of the things that we try to figure out and understand at a regular basis. So psychology, its roots come from the Greek word psyche or mind, and ology, field of study. Plain and simple. Okay. Yes, this was a study that was done in ancient times, but they really didn't characterize it as a social science at the time. It is now picking up steam the closer and the more understanding we have of the human mind, the body, and the way we perform tasks and different types of skills, which we'll get into here soon. If you guys want to write these notes down in paper and pencil, that's great, awesome. Word doc, you can do that. The Notes app, whatever you want to do. Okay, some people just take pictures of it. But for the most part, I talk more obviously, than what's labeled on the screen. So I think it's important that you write some of these things down that I say, because you'll find that on quizzes and tests as examples. Okay. Like I said, I'll post this PowerPoint for you then and the vocab to help you understand some of these structures and foundations that I want you to know for the assessments, maybe different quizzes, things like that. Is everybody good with this slide? Yeah, you don't have to write down every single word, but just understand the basics and kind of listen to what I'm saying to base off of the things displayed on the screen. All right, I just got to move on here. So, real quick, psychology's biggest issue is nature versus nurture. Okay, just make sure you guys know nature versus nurture here. That's one of the biggest key things here with psychology. Are we born with these instinct characteristics? So with animals especially. Okay, animals, they instinctively know and perform these tasks without even having to learn them. They just kind of instinctively know what to do and how to survive in an environment. Okay, so I give an example like a gecko or a lizard, right? They change the color of their skin to try to survive in their environment. It's not like they were ever to learn how to do that. It's just instinctively known. Okay, so that's with nature, right? Are we just born with these characteristics, born with these skills? We can resemble it into professional football players or professional sports players. Okay, are they just instinctively given these attributes, these skills? Are they born with it? In many cases, you can say, yeah, they are. A good example, Christian McCaffrey, right? His family is renowned with athletic ability, so it's kind of figured, this guy just got it from his parents. He was genetically built this way to run a football and run, 340, right, and lift all these abundance of weights. But at the same time, you still have to build those skills, right? Build those attributes, and which he does. He works out like a madman. So nurture, how we learn, how we process the materials and instructions and foundations that we see every day, and we can adapt that to make us perform the best we can. So in school, you guys are obviously writing down notes. You can look back to it at a later date. Okay, that's something that you pick up over time. You just don't instinctively know what to do. After doing it many, many times, yeah, you do. But for the most part, we learn and build. Okay, we learn these attributes. We learn these skills. So the first time you threw a football, TC, right? Did you know how to properly throw a football? No, you had to learn it, right? Someone had to teach you exactly how to do it. I remember Peyton Manning on Nickelodeon. He always used to show, he'd have little snippets of professional athletes, and his was the famous flick the booger. So after you get to throw it, you flick the booger, you get the spiral, which I thought was funny. It's like, it stuck in my mind. Nature versus nurture there. He was trying to teach me how to throw a football by flicking the booger at the end to get the spiral. All right, so that's psychology's biggest issue. Are we born with these innate abilities, or do we learn it over time? In some ways, I think it's a combination of both. What do you guys think? I think for the most part. All right, real quick, because I don't know how much time we have left. What's that? Oh, 11. Oh, we're good yet. You good with nature versus nurture? Again, you don't have to write every single word down. Just know the gist of nature versus nurture. All right, 4 main goals of psychology. Last thing I want to cover, guys. Description. So you describe or gather information about the behavior. So when you're making a naturalistic observation or controlled observation or a participant observation, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the upcoming chapter, you're trying to gather information about a person. Okay, you're trying to gather information about something you're studying. It could be an animal, right? It could be a person. It could be, I don't know, like a robot, an experiment that you have, right? Let's say you're just trying to perform tasks on some sort of robot to move. You're making observations, how you can make it better, okay? A lot of the information that you're gathering, you're seeing how we can change it and make it a little bit more efficient. We're trying to wonder why these people or organisms act the way they do. So that's the first goal of psychology. Gather information. Try to find a description of why they act the way they do. Okay. So any behaviors that they have, you're trying to ask why. Why do they do this? So this leads into the next goal, explanation. Explanation. So after we gather this information, after we gather these observations, we try to explain why these behaviors are performed, why these people, organisms, let's say robot, whatever we're observing, why they do the things they do. And this is where the hypothesis and theory falls into place. Okay, so the hypothesis, always an if-then statement for the most part. Okay, so if we, like I was saying before, with TC and throwing a football, if we practice a little bit more how to throw a football, then we'll throw touchdowns in the upcoming game, right, TC? Yeah, so that's just an easy hypothesis that I just came up with in my mind here. So an if-then statement is always how we will, have a hypothesis. Okay, how we'll formulate a hypothesis. And then if we go through the scientific method, we prove those variables are efficient. If we prove that that method of study is correct, we can push it as a theory then, right? So I think it's all known that if we practice a little bit more and practice more efficiently, we'll be better at a task or a skill, okay, which I'll get in the scientific method more tomorrow. Prediction. All right, prediction. This kind of goes with the hypothesis. So in order to see if this task or if this variable will work, we'll have to predict behaviors, okay? And that's why we run it through the scientific method, right? If it works, great. We can go on and publish results. We can replicate the study to try to actually prove to see if this skill or this task or this variable works to help us out, okay? But prediction is the next step to the 4 goals of psychology. We're trying to predict behaviors. If we alter Steve's, let's say him sleeping in class, if we just unplug his computer, his gaming console, let's say at 10 o'clock, he gets hours of sleep. Okay, if we predict, you know what, maybe if we unplug that at 10 o'clock, he'll get sleep and his grades will go a little bit higher, right? He will pay attention a little bit more in class the next day if we try to limit his time on the gaming console. And finally, influence, okay, influence. How we can try to influence behavior in helpful ways. So this kind of goes with prediction, right? So if we try to limit his gaming, his time on the console, we will influence his grades in a better way. We will influence his social life in a better way. His biological lifestyle, right? So he won't be drinking energy drinks all day or all night, staying up all night. Okay, he will be a healthier human being. So again, we'll talk about these perspectives, these approaches to psychology a little bit more in the upcoming chapters. But it's good to know the foundations here. Okay, 4 goals of psych. Remember this for quiz, test in the future. Okay, that will definitely be on it. Also, maybe a bell ringer tomorrow, right? Gracie, what do you think? That'll be a good one, right? Yeah, she's like, okay. It's like, don't point me out in class, Mr. Bowman. All right, is there any questions, guys, on the 4 goals of psych? Okay, just remember description, explanation, prediction, and influence. Okay? All right, that's all I have for today. 1 minute. Look at that. 1 minute. How nice is that? Hey, see you guys later. Pushing your chairs over here. Stop recording. See you guys later.